अस्सलाम वालेकुम रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू। फ़िरौन का और हज़रत
Assalamu
मूसा
alaikum
का
warahmatullahi
जो
wabarakatuh.
मुकाबला हुआ है फ़िरौन से, वही मज़मून है जो
Huzur
आज
is
भी
saying
जो है
that we
पैगाम
have
को
been
पहुँचे हुए
speaking by the confrontation
ज़मन
between
में
Moses
जो
and
सवालात हैं ज़ेर पेश
Pharaoh,
नज़र,
and Huzur
उन
is
सब के
hoping that today we shall be able
जवाबात
to
अभी
conclude
तक
this
नहीं मिल सके।
this
हकीकती
subject. And
तौर
in
पर
this regard, the questions
मगर जो
that have
मुहक़्क़िक़ीन
been
हैं उनके लिए ये
are
अभी रफ्त खुला है।
one comes into
इससे
one's
पहले
mind. We have
जो
not been able to find
मुहक़्क़िक़ीन
the
हमारे काम
answers
करते
to all
रहे
of
हैं,
them, but this
अक्सर
leaves the
तफासीर
path
तक
open
पहुँचकर
to researchers.
वहीं
Before this,
बात
the
को ख़त्म
researchers
कर
have
देते
been
हैं
working previously.
कि फ़लाँ तफ़सीर में ये
Mostly,
बात
when
है,
they
फ़लाँ तफ़सीर
arrive,
में ये
when they
बात है।
reach the
हालांकि तफासीर में
commentaries, and they have stopped,
अहादीस भी
they have
हैं,
they would
मुस्तनद
say
अहादीस
something
भी,
like this.
सती
This is
रवायात
said in
वाली
such and
अहादीस
such
भी,
a
लेकिन ये भी
commentary,
साबित
whereas
है
in
कि
the
उनमें भी
commentaries there are
इसराइलियात को दखल हो
they
गया है।
depend on
और इसराइलियात से मुराद
traditions,
ये है कि वो इसराइली
etc. But
रवायतें
it is also proven that
जो उस
such have
ज़माने
also
में यहूद और दूसरों
been
से
had an effect from
मुसलमानों
Israelite
तक पहुँची,
references, and it
उनको
refers to
अगर
those Israelite
बग़ैर छानबीन
references
के
which
इस वजह से
which
कि
reach the
यहूदी
Muslims
गलत हैं,
from
हो
the
सकता है ये हो,
Jews, and if one
उसी तरह बयान कर दिया गया
accepts
हो।
them
इसका हरगिज़ ये मकसद नहीं
because the
कि
Jews have been
हज़रत
telling
सल्लल्लाहु
us,
अलैहि
and
या
have they
सहाबा का ये
presented
तयशुदा मौक़िफ़ था,
just as they are, then it does not
और
mean that
क्योंकि
this
उन
was
रवायात में ऐसी
the Holy Prophet
लग़वियात भी दाखिल
ﷺ
हैं
or his companions' point of
जो
view,
काबिल
their
कबूल किसी
established point
कीमत
of
पर
view,
नहीं है।
and because such
कोई
sometimes
माकूल
there is some
इंसान ना
rubbish in
मुअज़्ज़े के
such
तौर पर उन्हें कबूल कर
references
सकता है,
which
ना इंसानी
we cannot
तजर्बे के लिहाज
accept
से उनको
no
दुरुस्त
matter what
करार दे
happens.
सकता है।
So
आजकल
such references
जो
cannot be
मुख्तलिफ लिखने
accepted
वाले हैं इस
if
ज़माने में,
anyone is slightly
उन्होंने ये
logical, if
हवाले
one
उठाए हैं।
considers it from the point of view
बाद
of
ऐसी
normal
रवायात हैं कि
experiences of man. These
किसी
days,
तरह
the
भी
different
काबिल
people
कबूल नहीं
who
है, लेकिन
write about
खिलाफ आ
this,
गई
they have
हैं।
taken up such references, and some of these
तो
references are
ये
such which are not
इस्तेमाल करना
acceptable no matter
कसूरन
what
गलत है
happens, but they have
कि
found
अगर
their way into
हदीस
our
की
commentaries.
कुतुब में
And in order to make
रवायत के
this
लिहाज से
this
मोतबर
to
रवायात
draw this conclusion that if
आखिरी
something
बात को आखिरी
is
नमूने
mentioned
के तौर पर रसूल
in a
सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम तक
book of
पहुंचाती हैं
tradition, and
या मुक़्तदर सहाबा तक पहुंचाती हैं, तो वो बात
if
ऐसी
they take
मुस्तनद
the
हो गई कि
matter
लाज़िमन हमें
take the
कबूल
matter
करनी
to the Holy
चाहिए।
Prophet ﷺ or to one of
ये असूल
his
काबिल कबूल हैं।
best companions,
मेरी
then
इस पे मैं पहले भी
should
गुफ्तगू
it
कर
be that
चुका
we
हूँ
should definitely
और इस सिलसिले
accept
में
those
अंदरूनी शहादत को
references?
देखना
There's
लाजिम है,
such traditions who are
और
saying this is
अंदरूनी
not accept
शहादत में
this
सैकड़ा गुण
we
बात
this
कुरान
is
करीम
not
का
wrong, this
अमूमी
is
बयान
wrong, and I've
और
spoken about
हज़रत
this
हज़रत
before, and
मोहम्मद
we
रसूलुल्लाह
must
की सीरत
look at the internal witnesses,
जो
and
कुरान से
this,
ज़ाहिर व
in order
ज़ाहिर
to
है,
make this distinction
हकीकत में
as
कुरान
to
और
whether
रसूल
they are
सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की सीरत
authentic or
दो
not. We have
ऐसी
to look
अलग
at the
अलग
Holy
चीज़ें नहीं
Quran, and
हैं,
we have to
बल्कि
look at the character of
जो
the Holy
कुरान में
Prophet
बयान है
ﷺ.
वो मोहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने
The
करके
the Holy
दिखाया
Prophet
है।
ﷺ's
जिंदा
character and
कुरान
the
के साथ
Quran
तशरीह
are
फरमाया कि
not different
इस
from
पहलू
each
से
other.
ये है
Whatever is
सैकड़ा गुण
mentioned
बात,
in the Holy Quran, the Holy
इन
Prophet
दोनों से
ﷺ put it
चकाती
into
हुई
action.
बात
So
अगर
he
कोई
was the living
जो
Quran in
रसूल अकरम
himself.
सल्लल्लाहु
So
अलैहि
this
वसल्लम की किसी
is
और
the
हदीस से
deciding factor,
या कुरान
that
से
if something is
टकराती हुई
clashes with
बात
this or
ऐसी नजर आए
contradicts
जिसकी
with another
असनाद दुरुस्त
tradition of the
हों,
Holy Prophet ﷺ or
तो
with the
फिर हमें
Holy
गुंजाइश
Quran,
ये निकालनी पड़ेगी कि उन
then
असनाद के
and
कहीं न
such
कहीं
a
कसूर हुआ
tradition
है,
has a correct
रावी ने जो बयान किया उसको छीनने
references
में
attached to
तजवीज़
it,
का कोई
then
कसूर हुआ है,
we should draw the
या फिर वो
conclusion that
इसराइलियात हैं।
the person who has heard it,
और
perhaps he may have heard
इसराइलियात
it
को
wrong,
बयान
or
करना तो मना नहीं था,
there might have been some
लेकिन
Israeli
इस तरह से
references, and Israeli references
ये है
to
मजमून।
explain them was never
इस पहलू से
denied, but there is
हज़रत
no,
मसीह मौऊद
didn't have any
अलैहिस्सलाम के ज़माने में
um,
आकर
authentic
हज़रत
references.
मसीह
So
मौऊद
from this
अलैहिस्सलाम
point
की
of view,
कुतुब में अगर ऐसी
in
बातें
the
दाखिल
time
हो
of
गई
the
हों
Messiah Islam,
जो साइंसी नुक्ता निगाह से उस
in
ज़माने
his
की
books,
सुनी
if
हैं,
such things
उस पर
have
बिना
entered,
करके
which according to
अगर बाद में
science
उनकी
they
दुरुस्ती
were
कराई जाए तो वो ये कहे कि
effects,
तुम नाउज़ुबिल्लाह मिन ज़ालिक
then
हज़रत
by
मसीह मौऊद के
relying on
मुताबिक
them,
बयान
if
कर रहे हैं,
afterwards they are
ये बिल्कुल लगव से
somebody exchanges
गैर
them, and then
माकूल
somebody
तरीका है।
says that you are saying
अगर
this
हज़रत
in
मसीह मौऊद
contradiction
अलैहिस्सलाम ने
to
उन
the Prophet
रवायात को
Islam,
कबूल
who are
कर
saying
लिया
this is
हो
completely
क्योंकि
wrong.
और उसके मुकाबले पर कोई
If
थी नहीं
the Prophet
जो
Islam
अब
has
तफासिर में आई
accepted
हैं
some references because
और
there was
उन
no
पर
other
बिना
reference
करके
in
उन्हें तशद्दुद
comparison to
माना
that,
हो
in contradiction to that, which
और
were
बाद में जो हक़ाइक़
contained
दरियाफ़्त
in
हों पता चले कि वो
the
गैर माकूल
commentaries, and
तफसीरों को
he
निकले
may have relied on them to
उस
make
पर
up a
कोई
particular point of view, and then afterwards
मौलवी
the
की
facts that
बात
were discovered,
एमजी उठ कर कहे कि
people may
नाउज़ुबिल्लाह मिन
have
ज़ालिक कुछ नहीं
realize that it shouldn't have been this, it should have been something else. Then if some Ahmadi who is has a Maulvi type of mentality, and he says that you are regarding the Prophet Islam as being wrong, then that person is completely wrong. That is not what is being done. So we're saying the same is applied to the Holy Prophet ﷺ. You should keep your estimations within logic and within your intelligence. So you should know that there is a possibility that if a prophet of Allah accepts something which was prevalent at his time, and a view that was prevalent at his time, and he does not have anything to reject that, then if he accepts that premise, then it is not wrong, it is not a sin, but you cannot make that a fact. You cannot say that that is exactly how things may have happened. So saying, let me give you an example from the Prophet ﷺ book, Braheen Ahmadiyya. The Prophet ﷺ said that he mentioned the subject of bringing the dead to life, and when referring to the Aryans' point of view, the Prophet ﷺ says that we see life coming from death. So to say that it is not possible to have life coming out of death, this is wrong. And what we witness is that after a monsoon rain, when there is completely dry land and it doesn't have to have any life in it, then suddenly it comes out, or suddenly life forms come out of it. Even frogs come out of it, and lots of little creepers. If no life can come out of anything that's dead, then what is this incident? So this this observation is correct, but science had not completed this research at the time, and it had not become well known that it should have reached the Prophet ﷺ that the life that comes out of the mere dust is actually, they have the seeds inside them of various forms, and those are the ones that with water are rejuvenated and come back to life. So it was not from completely the dead that life emanates. It's actually a seed of life which turned into a life. So what will people say about this? What will commentators say about this? Will they say that all the scientists are wrong, or will we deny what a lot of scientists have this point of view that when there is a seed of life present, then from that emanates life? And this is what we see from ancient times to now, and this is what the science has given it so many problems. And despite all the witnesses or all the observations, nowhere no science has seen that if there is complete lack of life and suddenly life should come out of it. And they also sorry, Huzur is saying that on the earth, initially there was fires, and there were horrific gases, poisonous gases, and then on the surface of the earth, and then slowly it became cool, and then possibilities then were born, which were born after millions of years, that something could be born in it, something living could be born in it. The proof presented by the Prophet ﷺ would be based on this. So people don't understand that we are not trying to contradict the Prophet ﷺ. We are presenting that proof which was not known to the Prophet ﷺ at the time, and now it has become known to us, to say that that proof is wrong. And this is not any weakening of the Prophet ﷺ's point of view, nor it is contradicting that. Indeed, it makes it more makes it more, affirms it further, that if at the time when there was no life at all in the world, when there was no seed of life present on the earth, and then after that life is formed and comes out of that, and that life spread across the whole world. So the point of view of the Prophet Islam to make it, to strengthen it from one of his proofs, to derive another proof from it. The Ayat al-Zuru saying, I regard this as being a faithfulness to the Prophet Islam, whereas some commentators think that it is wrong to do this. Huzur is saying, from no point of view do we. Let us take the incident of Hazrat Yahya al-Islam, but there we see in statements of the Prophet Islam himself about the Yahya. The Prophet Islam has said that, look, he used a sharp tongue, and then because of that his head was cut off. It is a very strong words. Huzur is saying that today we should begin from this. I wish to make you understand something here. Huzur saying the reason why I wish to explain this to you, that today the references we have found of Haman and Qarun, etc., in them there are many such references which the people who are sending it, they have themselves said that we cannot accept it. But about this, the Prophet Islam's discussions that were taken up about him, I wish to make you understand them. What the Prophet Islam has written is actually to do with an argument that he had, a discussion that he had, who was making an extremely horrific attack against the Prophet Islam, and he was saying that he was rude and he was abusive, and he says that how can you claim to be a prophet when you speak in this way? Huzur is saying that people used to make such attacks against the Prophet ﷺ in his time, and they continue to do so now. The Prophet ﷺ responds to him by saying that if we adopt your way, your method, then we should say that look at Yahya, look how hard-hearted he was, and he was so abusive that as a result of that his head was cut off, and it was presented on a tray. Would you accept such a point of view? Obviously, because he respected the Yahya al-Islam, this would hurt them, and then they also they took it in the wrong way, and the Ahmadis did not understand this in their naivety. This was something which was an argument, a point was being made, and the enemy was being made to understand a point of view a point which the Prophet Islam was trying to push forward in his own defense. So to say that this was the Prophet Islam's own point of view, and this makes it this proves that Yahya Islam's head was placed on a tray because of his rudeness and his abusive language. This is a completely wrong attack on the Prophet Islam, because afterwards he has said, the Prophet Islam has said elsewhere that according to his concern that no prophet has been it is not proven that any prophet has been killed. So this is what is this contradiction? Then this is a misunderstanding on behalf of people who are saying, I presented such things to you with reference to Israelites, etc. And other people, when they present this, then to make an attack in this way, this does not mean that this was a definite and a firm point of view of the whole Prophet Islam, whereas it has become clear that it cannot be said with certainty, because that certainty did not exist there. But while reading the books of the Prophet Islam, I wish to tell you that you have to understand these things The reason for this is that on the one hand there is qital, which is the fight by the sword, and one is the qital or the fight which is done by the pen. So the one which was being done by the sword, people had to respond to it with the sword, and a transgressor would be responded with a similar transgression. So this greatness is seen in the Holy Prophet ﷺ's time, that the same swords were used against the enemies of Islam which they had raised against Islam, but his depth of his character, which was seen in the greater jihad, in his the reformation that he caused, he wrote. That is not seen. So when Allah says about the Holy Prophet ﷺ, Huzur is asking what the verse is. Hatta yudkhna fil ard, that it is not, one should not have slaves until there is blood in the land. So it seems from this, we could say that it means that blood was made to flow in the land by the Holy Prophet ﷺ. This was completely wrong. At a particular occasion, at a particular time, it is right to say that there was a particular bravery that was shown, or that is fine to take that point of view, but it's completely wrong to say that he wanted to fight. So from the Prophet ﷺ's from such words, you should the words of the Prophet ﷺ wrote for the reformation of people, and for the sake of proclaiming the goodness of Islam and the secrets of Islam, which were lost or which were buried. He brought them out and he explained them in his books. And that personality, which was without any argument, when he expresses his own personal opinion about prophets, then it's a completely different point of view. He loves Jesus and he gives him with such greatness. He gives him such a great status in his mind that he says that Jesus said that this should happen. And just as the response to Abraham's prayer was the Holy Prophet ﷺ, then one of the prayers of Messiah, who is greater than Jesus, but this is similar nature, was the Prophet ﷺ. And then he got the name Ahmad, and then the same when he did the same pain, cried with the same pain, then that Messiah was born out of his prayer. And then another Messiah would also be born, who would be towards the end of times. So then no one would accept such things, and its complete denial will be, his complete denial will result in the finishing of the human species. The words of the Prophet ﷺ, which are not a part of any argument with any opponent, that is what we should look at. And from that it is evident that how the Prophet ﷺ felt about the Holy Prophet ﷺ. In fact, people who were the children of the children of the children of the children of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ also appears that he wished to shower himself upon him. But the Prophet ﷺ also says about the Ali Zanho, gives him incredible respect as well. But when he is using an argument, to make a point, he sometimes uses such histories as described by other people. So Huzur is saying that the words of the Prophet ﷺ in such a way are answers that he has given in response to certain questions, and this is exactly in accordance with the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran says that you should respond in such a strong way to people's attacks, that they then stop making such attacks. So the words that he has about words that he spoke at the time of a confrontation are different. But if Huzur is saying that when people of today read this and they read such attacks, they'll be worried. Huzur is saying that once I saw a tooth operation and saw someone fainting. So some people do not have the patience to bear things when people are fighting. Huzur is saying that sometimes Huzur is saying that they say that people say to me sometimes that on the one hand the Prophet Islam says that he prays to people, he prays for people, even his enemies. On the other hand, he says things like this, and Huzur is saying that I try to make them understand that look at the occasion of when such words were being spoken. The enemy who was speaking 10 times worse abusive words against the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and for his defense, should a lover's heart not show at least that much passion, that by taking the premises of the enemies themselves, he should use them as attacks on the enemy. And they were not the Prophet ﷺ's own premises, his own opinions. So this is the difference you need to understand, and you should know that the response that the Prophet ﷺ has given, which appeared to the non-Ahmadis as being extremely harsh, it is used using the same swords with which they attacked the Holy Prophet ﷺ. He did not create his own sword. They took the weapons of the enemy and used the same weapon to attack them. So they said that as if he was saying that you are using these swords to act against the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and now I take this sword and hit you with it. So this is the only principle which he used, and this you will not find in this any exception whatsoever. He took the enemy's own point of view, and he held it in his hand. He held that sword in his hand temporarily, and just as when if somebody is fighting who has a sword, and you take his sword from him, you disarm him, and then you use his sword to chop off his head. That's the style we see in the Prophet Islam. So otherwise, the Prophet Islam was extremely forgiving and kind, and taught people to forgive, and he has extreme mercy on his worst enemies. Why does he appear so harsh in some places? So when you understand this, then all of this subject of contradictions will all become resolved. So I wish to reiterate that it is the faithfulness is to understand this, and if such a human weakness occurs which is not against the character of prophets, and it becomes completely proven that now with the same weapon you cannot serve the Holy Prophet Islam, and another stronger weapon should, if it is picked up, a stronger weapon is presented to the Prophet Islam, and he uses that then to fight with the enemy with a stronger weapon. Then he uses it. So if you understand this, then you will be able to be free of such contradictions. So from the dead, the living being born, today we see that such does not appear to be correct. If that is from a land, a dead land, plants etc. can rise, then this does not appear. So what would you then regard the Prophet Islam? Huzur is saying that no matter what kind of a prophet it is, whether he is bringing a new message or not, he depends on the facts that are available to him, that are seen by him, and if the claim that he is making is correct, then he uses them in accordance with, or to prove the truth of the fact that he is a messenger of Allah, then this is completely correct. Huzur is saying if the times change and those things which were used to serve, then and that point of view is not presented, but if other bits of knowledge, then if something further has been discovered and one accepts that point of view, then somebody comes around and says that we are disrespecting the Prophet ﷺ, they'd be completely wrong. The point is that you should keep the principle in mind and the point of view of the Prophet ﷺ in mind, and even if other facts change, it doesn't matter. So if despite of all these, the Prophet ﷺ's point of view is proven with even greater, with more greatness than before. If one finds other proofs of science which goes on proving them right. Huzur is saying there are some simple people and they keep denying and they don't understand, so leave their case with God. But if out of naivety, if people have such mental illnesses, if they're doing such things, and let them do them, Allah will treat them with favor, because Allah says in the Holy Quran, "Auzubillahi minash-shaytanir rajeem, la yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wusaha." Now they're saying we should turn towards the mistake that was made. Huzur is saying that to study these, in order to study these, Huzur is saying that I have been correcting a verse of the Holy Quran's translation, but he made a mistake, and Huzur is saying that our people have brought my attention to this. Huzur is saying that I said iqze, and I thought fi was separate, and the qaza yaksi, the verb, which means to put a splinter in somebody's eye, but this is not what is meant in the Holy Quran in that place. And the word is iqzif, from qazafa yaksifu. Iqzifi means, iqzifi is a separate word and he is a separate word. Huzur is saying that for a long time I was in this misunderstanding, that I thought that iqzi was separate and fi was separate, and this is Allah's favor that yesterday when I explained this detail, then this was brought forward. Huzur is saying that the translation, because it's in accordance with this is why the scholars did not pay attention to this. But when I showed it to them, Huzur is saying that my Mubarak Musliddin and another gentleman, Huzur is saying that people used to call him by some name. Huzur is saying that because when he was young, he used to like to talk about good things. Then some people used to call him Muslim Maud, or the reform. Huzur is saying sometimes, like Dr. Sahib is called Dr. Taqwa. Huzur is referring to Dr. Mujibul Haq. Huzur is saying this is wrong. It is not the right thing to say. And such things are, this is goes into that, the verse of the Holy Quran when Allah says La tanabuzu bil alqab, is a very strict advice in the Holy Quran. Huzur is saying that so there are some people who used to be named by these names. Huzur is saying that because I had heard this before, then it was in my mind, but I'm saying this in apologetic fashion. Huzur is saying it's wrong to have such names. If you give somebody a name with love, then that is not against the teachings of the Holy Quran. The Quran tells people not to name anyone which hurt people in such a way which hurts people. Huzur is saying in the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, people used to call people with such names, such as Abu Huraira means the father of cats, but because this was not in a form of to hurt him, so it was acceptable. So Huzur Singh Mubarak Musliuddin also has reminded me of the same thing, that you thought that when Igzi fihe, you thought that Igzi was separate, and fihe, in it, you thought it was a separate word, and this is why the commentary was formed in this way. But it is proven, Huzur is saying, that all researchers accept that this word, qaza yaksi, does not come from this. It comes from qazafa, and it is not about the splinter in the eye. Huzur is saying that that's what used to be in my mind, that if this word of a splinter going in the eye is called qaza, then perhaps one of the meanings of this word would be to put something into a box and then put him in the river. That is to Moses' body. Moses is when he was a baby, but he's saying that no, it comes from qazafa yaksifu, which means to put something inside something. So Huzur is saying that this is an example. Huzur is saying that I made in innocence, I made a mistake, and with that that commentary comes to an end, which is just for enjoyment, but the basic thing remains exactly the same. If they bring my attention to this mistake, then this is not any form of rudeness. This is a favor, because as I have said before, we are students, and many experts who wrote, for example, these things as well, who are saying they don't want to give their example. Once they wrote me something and I said, no, this is wrong, and they withdrew what they said. Huzur is saying that the best thing to say at such a time is Subhanallah, that only Allah is the one who is free of mistakes, and it is, one must remember that whenever you realize a mistake, you should accept it, otherwise you will not be a student, and if you are not a student, you cannot be a teacher. The Holy Prophet ﷺ has tied these two together, that if you remain a student, only then can you be a teacher. So, when it says about the Holy Prophet ﷺ in the Holy Quran, Huzur is saying that the one that I read, Huzur is saying that Huzur's forgotten a verse, and he's saying sometimes when my brain is somewhere, think of something else, then I don't remember something that I know normally. Huzur is now saying that Huzur has now remembered that verse, and which says that the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, "Qulu darasta," that have you told them? كذلك نصرف الآيات وليقولوا درست ولنبينه لقوم يعلمون وَلَيَقُولُ دَرَسْتَ. This is how we teach the Holy Prophet ﷺ things. It says in the Holy Quran, we teach them such great things, so that the people say that yes, you have performed your duty of informing us, of teaching us. Huzur is saying that from this I was sure that it meant to teach someone. And this is one of the meanings. One of the meanings is to learn. So usually ulama say that darasa only means to learn, not in the meaning of teaching. But this verse would not sound as great as it is if you take out one of the meanings. So then I found out that Imam Razi and other commentators have also said that it means its first meaning is to learn, but it also means to teach. So in this tradition this verse would then be at one with that tradition when he said that you should learn and teach. So then the Holy Prophet ﷺ is then told by Allah that you should teach them things of such wisdom that people will be forced to proclaim that you have learned from your Lord and you have taught us well. So here also, if it is meant that if you learn properly, you'll have to teach properly as well. But to not learn something that this would hurt me, this is completely wrong, and this is what the Jamaat should keep away from, and we should say we should seek forgiveness of Allah. So I'm grateful to this gentleman to bring my attention to this, Mubarak Musliddin Sahib, and the other gentleman as well. Huzur is grateful too. Huzur is saying that now let us return to the subject we were discussing yesterday. Huzur is saying that there's so many things keep coming out of the main thread of investigation. Huzur is saying that I hope that people don't get bored of this. Huzur is saying that these are interesting things as well, aren't they? Huzur is saying they have to do with the commentary at the end of the day. Huzur saying now I wish to return to the subject of Pharaoh, that the problems that we have, one of them is that who was Haman and who was Qarun, which are mentioned in the Holy Quran. And Qarun is not supposed to be the head of Janud, that is the army. Allah says Pharaoh and Haman and the two armies, so they both were such powers who had their own powers. But Qarun, it is said in the Holy Quran that he has power and he has treasures, and he was from the people of Moses. And the confrontation of Moses with in the confrontations of Moses, all these three characters should be present. So this investigation and that treasure being buried there, etc., all of these stories, and to try, and this has to be found in the time of a particular pharaoh, and to transfer this to the time of another pharaoh, that is Minfata, it would be a problem. And the commentators of the Bibles, when they accept this, that when the Egyptologists have investigated about Ramesses II's era, then with the confrontation of Moses, it's impossible to apply to anyone else, to any other pharaohs than Ramesses, because all of the great wars, battles, the great confrontation between Moses and Ramesses, they must have taken place at that era. But we must do this investigation ourselves. So saying also the research on Asiya, on Pharaoh's wife, is not complete yet, and we do not know when she got married and when Moses was born. At that time, was she around? Was Asiya around, or is she a wife who was around afterwards? So the Holy Quran, it appears that Asiya was the lady who suggested that Moses should be adopted, and I suggested that we should first find out as to where this name Asiya is derived from. This is we have managed to find the tradition in Sahih Bukhari, which is that out of women, it says there are two ladies which attained greatness. One was Pharaoh's wife Asiya, and the second was Mary, mother of Jesus. Huzur is saying this is in the Holy Quran. In Surah Tahrim, Allah does not mention the name of Pharaoh's wife in the Holy Quran. Allah just says the wife of the Pharaoh. The Holy Prophet ﷺ has described her name to be Asiya. And the name, Huzur saying, when I searched for this name Asiya, there is a lady in the time of Ramesses who is called his wife, his main wife. Her name was Isanofri, ISO. The first three letters are similar to, are the same as the first three letters of Asiya, and apart from that, there is no other wife whose name should have started from ISO. or neither in the time of the Pharaoh before him nor in the time of the Pharaoh after him, that is Menfata. So this is further investigation opens this before us, that Moses was around the time of Ramesses II because of his wife's name as well, but also there is another meaning of the name of Asiya. Let us see what that is, and it may well be that this could have been a name of her character. So from this point of view, when one considers, it was asking where the references are, where the possibilities of the name are found. It was looking for the reference. Asaho Yasuho Aswan Rabahu Azzahu. It treated him, or to commiserate with someone. This is one of the meanings of the word Asiya, someone who treats, who heals, or to commiserate. So they were saying that the other meaning, which is saying that I have always thought of, is Asiya Al-Asiya alayhi hazina fahuwa asin. The word Yas, that is of pain. This is a name of character. If then its basis seems to be in this, because the Holy Quran tells us that she was extremely sad and she used to pray to Allah that, "Oh Allah, save me from this cruel Pharaoh," and she had believed in Moses, and as a result of that, commentators have such pretend words, stories about him, about her, which have no basis in Israeli stories, that she was put on stones. This is wrong, but from the actions of Pharaoh, she hated them, and she used to pray that, "Enable me to be away from him and grant me a name, a house in heaven." So once when somebody asked whether Pharaoh was in heaven or not, would go to heaven or not, because we were saying if that happens, then it'd be a big problem for Asiya, that she would want it to be. She wanted to be saved from Pharaoh, and then she should go to heaven and find Pharaoh there. So this is what kind of getting rid of Pharaoh would that be? So this means that Pharaoh will have no. She'll have nothing to do with Pharaoh on the day of judgment, and she'll be completely free of him then. We're saying this Isonofre is the name, is a possible name, but the researchers should investigate this further. And another thing which is proven from the Holy Quran, which is derived from the Holy Quran, is whenever that wife said to Pharaoh that, "Let us keep him so that we can make him our son," there she doesn't say, "Let me keep him," she says, let us keep him, which means that Pharaoh did not have children from any other wife. If he had other wives, then he didn't have children from other wives, and she was telling him that, "Look, it could well be that we may not have children," and then it was to die without issue was extremely humiliating for a Pharaoh, and perhaps because of this, Pharaoh permitted her to keep him. But then after that, he had a lot of children, and the Minfata, who was 60 years old when he became a king, he was the 13th child, and when Pharaoh died, Ramesses, 12 of his children had died, and when were they born? at what time. Now I wish to return to this from the point of view of the Holy Quran and from the Egyptologists' possible points of view as well. Everybody is agreed on that Minfata's age was 60 years old when Ramesses died. This is how much younger he was than him, so that we know when he was born. If he was, we think that he was 95 years old, Ramesses, when he died, and many researchers appear to believe this, then he was born 35 years afterwards, after the king was born. So now the question is as to when the king took his throne. So then we would know how long after he became a king was he born. So people say that he was made a king either from anywhere from 18 years old to 29 years old. So if he was 95 years old when he died, then he was 35 years younger than his father. And if the father was made a pharaoh when he was 29 years old, then he was born 7 years after that. And from this point of view, if Moses was born during that time, then it is not something to be surprised about. If other references are accepted, then his age would appear to not have been 18. It would appear to be 29. So this is the maximum age that when he became king, when he became pharaoh. Huzur is saying that his maximum age that it could have been. And so I took that maximum age, and I have calculated this, that if the son was younger from the father at the age of 35, then when he was made king, then after how long was the son born? He was born 7 years after that. Huzur is saying, asking Imam Sahib if he understood the calculation. Huzur is saying, if you don't understand it, then who else would understand it? Huzur is saying that I'm compelled to make people understand, because we have to make it understood to everyone. Huzur is saying that Pharaoh's age has been described as being 95 years when he died, and there is no disagreement on this, that Minfata was 60 years old when he became king, when he became pharaoh, which means that if his father's age was 95 and when he died his age was 95, and at that time Minfata's age was 60, then that means that he was 35 years younger than his father. Is this clear? He was asking. If he was 35 years younger than his father, then when was he born? So Huzur is saying that I have made this, in order to make this calculation, I have given the maximum age of when he became pharaoh. So he was in 6 years he was going to become he was going to give birth to Minfata. Huzur is saying that, so that means that he was 6 years younger. So after he became, he was younger than Moses by 6 years. If Moses was born in the same year, or he was born within that year, then after 5 or 6 years, Minfata was younger than Moses by 5 or 6 years. Huzur is saying, what are the other possibilities? If we accept, then it is not if we accept this, and it is not acceptable that 13 children should be born before him. How could he have so many children, 13 children in that 6 years, and he was the 13th? So we will have to look for such references which are known acceptable to scholars, but which make a greater distance from Minfata's birth. And I have looked at these, and some people say that 14 years had gone past when Minfata was born. It is also it is said that the minimum could have been was 18. So the time of reign of Seti was 11 years according to some people, but some people say that it was 14 years as well. If Huzur saying that if Ramesses was born after he became king, then he would have been 14 years old maximum when he became king, or between 13 and 14 years old when Seti died and he became king. So at the age of 14, about him to think that he had a wife and she was talking about children, it is something that one's mind does not accept. So this scenario clashes with the scenario presented by the Holy Quran. Is that understood? So one should search as to whether his age was longer than that. When we research this and we realize that on one stele, the same Pharaoh's own confession is written, that is inscribed, that when my father was celebrating his coronation and he was presenting himself before the people, and he said that he was at an age when he was a toddler, and he put a crown on his head, and he said that this child today, he should also be made king with me, and this is a very clever child. And then he constantly put his trust on me and gave me important jobs, tasks, and this is what he mentions on his stele. He's saying that let us leave other things when he mentions his arrogance and his pride, and when the Holy Quran calls him arrogant as well. He's saying that there was no other more arrogant pharaoh than him. He was so arrogant that his name, some people have named him as, give him the title of the chiseler. Huzur is saying that what is it called in Urdu? Huzur is saying that in Urdu, I wonder what it says. Huzur is asking about the word for chiseler in Urdu. Huzur saying that I have heard the word cheni. Huzur, I'm not sure what it is in Urdu, but in any case, Huzur saying that he was a chiseler in the sense that the such steles which there were some small tablets or some stones on which words were inscribed, dates, etc. were described, and they would save the current eras or whatever was happening currently. Historians used to inscribe those things, so they have a great importance in the eyes of researchers, but of whom this pharaoh has said about himself, he has written about himself a lot. Everybody accepts him that he exaggerated. So he was a chiseler. He would take other pharaohs' great tasks that were written, and he would take their names away. He would chisel their name away and put his name there instead. So Huzur is saying that other things, exaggerations that he may have written, we will take them with a pinch of salt, but he cannot erase the history of his own era. So one has to accept that in front of everyone he has mentioned his own his own history, which was something which was known to the people at the time and doesn't appear to be something which is made up. If this has, if this clashes with something else, and this could be wrong as well. But because this is in one with other other matters, other facts, so we should accept this. So Huzur is saying that means that he spent 14 years during the era of Seti. So when people say that he was 18 when he was when he became pharaoh, then this seems to be quite acceptable. So then from the age of 18 to the age of 35, that he may have had 13 sons, it makes sense, which means that if he died at the time of 95, that means that there's 35 years difference. So at the age of 18, he must have, if he had become a king, then from then to 25 years old, there were 17 years in the middle. In that, so such a pharaoh to have 13 sons is not impossible, whose harems were filled, and he would be proud of the fact that some are my wives and some are concubines. Who's asking what concubines are in Urdu? And for such children to be born out of them is not impossible. As far as one wife is concerned, in Isonofri, she is the one about whom it is said that she was Minfata's mother, and Minfata's mother is said to be the mother of 4 children. So it doesn't seem to be unacceptable, and this can in fact fit with what the Holy Quran is saying, that when Moses was born, then the lady who adopted him, her name was Isonofri or Asiya, and up to that point she had no children. And Moses was born so quickly after he became a king that the first thing he said was to destroy the Israelites, because his father was extreme enemy of the Israelites, and he taught him he taught him to be cruel to the Israelites, and this is why when he became a pharaoh, he said that their male children should be killed. So at that time, when Moses was born, she did not have any children, and then afterwards she had 4 children. Asiya spent a long time experiencing the cruelties of Pharaoh, and for a long time she was in pain, and she prays that, "Oh Allah, grant me salvation from this cruel man." So when she got this salvation, we do not know, so we should search for her, do research on her history as well. And Huzur is saying that I wish to say that do not go on whatever, do not accept what historians are saying. They had no access to such matters of knowledge, so you should go directly to the things that were discovered, archaeological facts that were discovered, and this way inshallah we will be able to remove many veils from the facts of history. The second thing is Qarun and Haman, and for those two to be at the time of Ramesses is well possible. So now let us see who Haman was. Huzur is saying that
under the pharaohs,
essay written by Abdul Qadir Sahib in 1965, Egypt at the time of Pharaoh, who's saying that I can't read this reference properly.
नाम ऐसा है जो
It appears to be a German name.
में आम मारूफ
Huzur Singh is not a name that is normally known in English. In that he says that
बड़े काहन को कहते
Ham was a big
मान आमून से
a big man, and Aman was taken from Amun. This is very, very true.
मान दरअसल
Haman was actually the chief priest.
कहलाता था उसका टाइटल
It was his title,
और
and Haman
को इतना बड़ा मर्तबा
had such a great
फिरौन
status that Ramesses
हामान ही बनाया था
made his eldest son Haman, and he was as a chief priest. He had a lot of power in his hand,
तहकीक से साबित
and research has proven that when he was celebrated his 30th birthday, that was his first son.
रैमसेस
When Ramesses
सालगिरह मनाई है
celebrated his 30th birthday, he was still alive, and after that,
सालगिरह में जो
in
50 साल तक इसने बनाई
any of his birthdays
मुहैया हो चुके हैं
which he celebrated, 9 of them have been found. 9 of those celebrations have been, the details of those have been found on the steles. So until up to the age of 50,
हामान का जिक्र
he celebrated 9 of his birthdays, where Haman is not mentioned anywhere, which seems that he had died by then, or he had died before the coming of the return of Moses.
अगर था
So if at the time of drowning, if there was,
फिरौन कहता है कि
it was some other Haman, and the Haman who was told to make this building, which is mentioned in the Holy Quran, it would have been some other Haman. The Holy Quran says that Pharaoh said to Haman that make this big tower for me, big building for me,
वो
and
हज़रत मूसा की वापसी से पहले
and history says that Haman had died before the return of Moses, and he wasn't present there at the time of the confrontation, and his sons were died so quickly that 13 years he saw 13 of his sons dying until just before he died. That is the Pharaoh. So in any case, we're saying the word Junudahuma, we have to make further investigations into this word, and the investigations we have made
फिरौन के
lead us to believe that Pharaoh had 2 armies. This Pharaoh, that is Ramesses II, had 2 armies. So this is another proof that it was the same Pharaoh.
साले सफी में
Huzur is saying that where is the reference that Saleh Safi provided? His army composed mainly of Egyptians, but also including a large body of foreign mercenaries consisting of 4 divisions named after gods. One of the divisions was Amun, which is Haman.
इस डिवीजन का जो
The leader of this division,
वो हामान
who was called Haman,
वो जो
and the chief commander or whatever, the one with the highest status,
आता है वो हामान ही है
number 2 status after Pharaoh was Haman, who was the chief priest as well.
और हामान
But the chief priest Haman and the one who was the head of the army, were these two the same character, or were they different characters? I was saying, as far as I'm concerned, it was 2 people. One of them is Haman, who is the chief priest, but one who is the head of the army is someone else. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if we accept them to be foreign bodies, then there are 2 possibilities. One is that either he was himself among those who were not Egyptians, but they were from somewhere else, or it was some Egyptian Haman who was also a chief priest. He was made the head of an army, of whom one of the major armies was called Amun, and this is what the head of them was called Amun. So when the Holy Quran says Junudahuma, that Pharaoh and Haman and his the 2 separate armies, they were both khati'in. This is another great proof of the truth of the Holy Quran, that in such fine detail the Holy Quran sheds light on the history of that Pharaoh, and the historians who then who are trying to ascertain this from Estili, and they accept that yes, this might have happened or that might have happened 14 years ago. The Holy Quran presented them to us, and all of these things do not fit Minfata. So those people who believe in Minfata as being Moses' Pharaoh, what will happen to them? Huzur is saying Minfata was much younger than Moses, and for him to say that you were in front of us and you were younger than us, how can you say to someone who was 20 years older than someone? He doesn't say to him that why do you you grew up before our eyes. Of course not. Huzur is saying that it's very clear to me that Moses was born the time of Ramesses, and he was taken care of by his wife, and during his time he migrated, and within 40 years he returned, and Minfata was much later than him. And then there was the confrontations, and those people were given a severe defeat. Huzur is saying that this reference has been taken from the Chambers Encyclopedia about these armies. Huzur is asking where the other reference is. Huzur is saying this is a very important reference. Huzur is saying that I had mentioned Estili, in which Minfata, which shows that Minfata is proud, and it says he says in his pride that I have gone and I have crushed the seed of the Israelites, and I'm concluded from this that if there's such a fight with the Israelites is if they're fighting with the Israelites right there and then, why should he go somewhere else and kill them? Huzur is saying that some people think that because they were his slaves then and they needed him, and he should go somewhere else to kill a different type of people. Huzur is saying that I don't accept this either. So Pharaoh, it appears from this that he was completely helpless in front of before such people whom he looked down on. He thought that they were ordinary people, and he makes claims that he's a representative of God, and then he even tries to kill him, but he is forced, and he does not make the final decision because he saw some power in Moses which compelled him to behave in this way. So where would he have got the chance from at that time that he should go out and kill the Israelites? So this is not just something that I have ascertained. These references, I have a reference to prove what I'm saying. This is a reference from history of the Hebrews to the Roman period. A.R. Oatley, he's saying that from this stele, there are many researchers have drawn this definite conclusion that when Minfata became king, before that the Hebrews had left that area completely, and they had none of them were found in the city, in that country anymore. So the words of the stele, he's saying that he has considered very carefully, and from those words some very important researchers also derive the conclusion that whether he took whether he killed them or not, this we believe in because he was trying to seek revenge for what happened to his father. So we're saying that when we're talking about his avenging his father, let us see what Islam teaches us about this. The era of Ramesses, as I said to you, Huzur is saying that It is definitely before the Moses' return, because the Holy Quran says that when Moses reached the age of 40, when he reaches the age of being a prophet, and he fulfills his time of 8 years with his father-in-law, he doesn't want to stay there, because if he was 10, then there was no question of his taking permission, because he was seeking permission. It means that the minimum time had gone past, and he said to his father-in-law that I wish to go now. And at that time Allah makes him a prophet, and Allah says to him that now you have reached the age where you can do my work, and therefore I have chosen you for myself. So Huzur is saying this is definitely, he was younger than 40. So Huzur is saying that I thought that one could consider the possibility that he may have got prophethood at an earlier age, because Allah is saying that you have reached an age where we have chosen you. So this also points to this, that the youngest age that a person could be, if the Holy Quran, if Moses became a prophet, then this is in accordance with what the Holy Quran is saying and not against it. So here we thought that he might have been 33 when he was granted prophethood. This is why I thought that he might have migrated at the age of 25. So we cannot say that he was more than 30, because that is when he was at the prime of his youth, when he migrated. So only one researcher is saying that he migrated at the age of 40, and he stayed there for 40 years, and when he was 80 years old he returned. This is such a made-up story which completely ruins the whole history and is not acceptable at all. This is from the Bible. So the only story acceptable is that of the Holy Quran, that when Moses returned, he was 35 or at the most 40 years old. If he was 35, then how much younger than the Pharaoh was he? That son Minfata was 25 years younger than Ramesses, but he was younger than Moses. This is why I said that you have to make a distance between them. If Moses was 33 years younger, and if he returned at the age of 33 years, then that would mean that Moses spent 25 years there, and because after him the other Pharaoh was 35 years younger than his father, so when he migrated at the age of 25, then at that time he was already born, because he was younger than his father's age, and he was not younger than when his father was enthroned. So there is a confusion here. Huzur saying that I'm taking you back to remove that confusion. If he was born 18 years previously, that is the Pharaoh, then in 18 years, if you add 25 of Moses when he migrated, how long is that? So Huzur is saying is 30. When he was 33 when Moses migrated, and if he was 35 years younger than his father, then how old was he? When was he born then? He was 17. The king was 17, or he had been a king for 17 years when he was born. So before Moses' migration, he had already been born. At the time after the Hijrah, he was he was a boy, but he had not yet reached his age of maturity. This is the scenario that is painted before us. But when he confronted with Pharaoh, then after that, when did the Pharaoh die? This is what we have to ascertain. I said from the Holy Quran that it could be that it was an era between at least 10 and 8 and 10 years old, Huzur is saying that I have got my research team to work very hard on this, especially ladies. The whole night they sit down and they prepare things for the future, for the next day, and some of them give me very good references. And the research that they have done, Huzur is saying that from that point of view, now let me tell you, Huzur is saying I will talk about the research later, but let me first tell you, from their research, we have discovered at least one thing, that there are many researchers who say that this period was probably 10 years. So my expectation, what I had judged according to the Holy Quran, it appears to be correct. Appears to be correct. It has been agreed upon by the commentators, by historians. Huzur is saying this is another greatness of the Holy Quran, that if you make a deduction based on the Holy Quran, it proves to be true. So Huzur is saying that if Pharaoh was 18 when he became king, then 18 plus 33 is 61, and this was the time of the Pharaoh when the incident of the drowning occurred. And at that time, how old was Minfata? If he was younger than 30, then his father by 30 years, then he would have been 31, or he might have been a bit younger, about 26. So Minfata was only a young man when this incident occurred. So let us now see that after that age, when he was 61, after that until death, did he live as someone who was punished, or as a proof of or as glorious as he was before, or was he in a much lower state than before? Huzur is saying this is the reason why I bring this to your attention. Huzur is saying about Ramesses, the research tells us the first thing is that in 1881, Ramesses and Seti, both of their mummies were discovered in 1881, and during the time of the claim of the Promised Islam is a very close time to that. The Holy Prophet, the Promised Islam, was told to take Bayat in 1982, and this was discovered in 1981. So his mummy to be discovered at the time of the Promised Islam makes my view further puts further confirmation that this is one of the further proofs of the Holy Quran's truth that were brought to the focus in the world because at the time of the Promised Islam. So Huzur saying Minfata was after Minfata was discovered afterwards, but Seti and Ramesses was his mummies were discovered before. Ramesses was tall, and his head was small compared to his body. He had a bald skull. He was about 6 feet tall. From the mummy, this is what they have discovered. This is something which was ascertained from the actual mummies, that he was 6 feet tall, and his head was higher than his head. He was a very arrogant man, and this is how it goes with him, with his character. And medical studies show that he died in advanced old age, perhaps in his 90s. So he was between 90 to 95 years, which these medical studies support this point of view. Therefore, this is not something which is just a conjecture, a mere conjecture. X-rays of his bones show arthritis of the hip, which would have caused him to walk with a painful limp. And in order to break his arrogance, it was also one of the ways in which this was done was the way he used to stomp on the ground. One of his leg legs was limped, so he couldn't stomp on the ground like that anymore, so his arrogance was broken. And then he had a serious problem in his teeth. The bone near the roots being badly pitted with abscesses causes unpleasant breath. So Huzur is saying that they say that the unpleasant breath that he suffered from, Huzur is saying that they are using a very mild word. It must have been extremely offensive breath. So his he had extremely painful pain in his teeth, and apart from that, he had an extremely horrific smell that used to emanate from his mouth. And this is a scenario that we get from history. The other is Dr. Rosalie David, Mysteries of the Mummies, 1978. About Ramesses, she says that according to our research, he had arteriosclerosis, which had been developing for several years, which means that when he confronted Moses, and after that, the other 30 years that were left, he also had this disease which stopped him, which prevented him from walking, and he had a painful disease of the teeth. And about that, doctors have said that this is the disease that he died from, and he died in a lot of pain. And then he had arteriosclerosis, which generally made him forget things and made him have a loss of strength. And although it can be said that he had not gone senile, and he was conscious, but this is to have a good consciousness at a time when he's in pain is not necessarily a good thing. So as long as he remained, he was afflicted with all these terrible diseases. And when historians mention his final era, they say that at that age, when he confronted Moses, when he was 61 years old, and when Moses left, the Exodus happened, then the time after that, his history is completely dead. All his glory was gone from him, and after that, there's no attacks of him that are found. Huzur is saying that once before I said that afterwards he attacked Israel. That was wrong. When I investigate this further, then I found this very certainly. Huzur is saying that was because I read it somewhere. This is why I presented it, although it went against my point of view. But the truth is that after that age of 61, when he finally confronted Moses, he never attacked overseas, and day after day his government was in decline, and people outside lands that he had acquired outside Egypt, they were lost to him, and there was a decline. So the Holy Quran's statement is correct that their greatness from that land was gone, and they were gone from that area, and those people who were looked down on the earth, they would be given the inheritance of that land. And some people think that it should happen immediately. Huzur is saying sometimes a long time, things happen after a long time. So this process took a while, and Huzur is saying that if my point of view is true, there's no other point of view that appears to fit with all this. So then it would mean that it was the same Pharaoh who came out from the drowning, and although he lived in an extremely horrific state. He was a paralytic state. His kingdom was in decline, and when he died, then Minfeta, because of the horrific memories of his father, he attacked those areas where Moses and his his people had gone to live, and where they was trying to at least to live there. So he could not have known that at this time where exactly Moses and his people are right now. But the few people who were in Palestine, whom he found, either he completely annihilated them, thinking that these are the Israelites, or he lied and he beat them, but he did not kill all of them. And then Pharaoh and his people then finish, because at the time of Menfata the decline continued, and during his son's times the government was lost very fast. There was a rapid decline, and then the Greeks attacked, and then forever the era of the pharaohs came to an end. And as a result of the attack of the Greece, once again the Israelites were shown the path of victory. Look at how Allah's destiny works, because the Greeks, they had accepted the message of Jesus, and to a large extent we require the Greek language to reach the real Bible, because so then after that the Greeks ruled over Egypt for a long time, and this victory over them, it resulted in a transfer of government, because those people who were ruling Pharaoh's country, they were made the slaves of those people. And then the Israelites conquered them. Huzur is saying that Allah's promises take their own time, and in an incredible manner they come true. So this is the Pharaoh, and this is what happened to him. This was his end, which Huzur is saying I have presented before you. After this, if anyone Huzur is saying that in the late period it says that in the late period of his life, Ramesses II became senile, and many rebellions on the border grew. Huzur is saying that the reference is from a book called by J.E. Berry, S.A. Cook, and F.E. Huzur is asking what the word is. It's Aloch, perhaps Cambridge Ancient History. The Cambridge Ancient History, which was published in 1924. This is described in that. The various pharaohs, Cottrell, Evans Brothers Limited. There is a similar subject is mentioned in that book as well, which was published in 1968. But now Huzur is saying that I wish to conclude this matter, and I wish to tell you in conclusion that despite all of these things, Huzur is saying that I feel that the research must continue, because Huzur is saying that I have no love for this point of view that the Pharaoh should have survived the drowning. I do not have a relationship with this. This is against my character. My heart desires that Pharaoh's body should be discovered, who clashed with Moses, and then he would have drowned and died, and then we would take the meaning that although his body survived in a mummy form, but he had died, but because the witnesses, historical witnesses, bind me to translate this as meaning that there is no time now for the Pharaoh for his soul to survive, but his body could survive despite the fact that he drowned. But when he lived, and this faith or acceptance of faith would be of no use to him. This is a continued principle which is mentioned in the Holy Quran, that if at the time of death somebody seeks forgiveness, then that is not acceptable, because if he had been forgiven, then he would have gone to paradise. So he was saying that I'm not saying this. I'm not closing the doors to other possibilities. But if there are other possibilities, then show them to me. Huzur is saying that defeat will also be my victory, because I wish to show the sign of the Holy Quran, because I love the Holy Quran and I wish to save the Holy Quran from a horrific attack on the Holy Quran, which people are doing with the help of the Holy Quran. Huzur is saying they're not trying to help someone who is fallen and is weak. In the Holy Quran, there were such forcible defensive points which enabled me to study the Pharaoh's history so clearly, and in my mind I found that all of those things, all of those matters that were in the Holy Quran, they fell into place like a jigsaw puzzle. So Huzur is saying that if someone disagrees with me, then that's fine, but you must prove it then, and you must prove the existence of a Pharaoh on whom these incidents mentioned in the Holy Quran should fit on his life. Huzur is saying in another book, the Encyclopedia, it says that the best historians, who are the intelligent scholars, they are forced to accept that it was in the time of in the time of Ramesses, that Moses clashed with Pharaoh, because he says that all of those things, the historical incidences, coincide with that of Moses, and where the Bible matches with the Holy Quran, in those they discuss that is the Pharaoh who used to construct a lot, and he had a huge army, and there are two armies. So this by discussing all of these things, this is a conclusion that they draw. So if anyone can prove that the Pharaoh under discussion was not Ramesses II, it was someone else, then he would have to show all of these armies in his time. He would have to show an Asya in his time. Huzur saying that not Asya, but his greatness and his constructions of towns upon towns, and Israelites clash with the Pharaoh, and the signs of Allah descending upon them again and again. If those things are shown, then the Huzur is saying that I will still win, because when the Quran wins, I will win, because then I will say that if the Pharaoh has died, then there is nothing wrong with this. I don't mind accepting that. Huzur is saying, don't worry about me, but let me you should have your investigation. Huzur saying that one should not just take some commentaries and accept some things which other people have mentioned. Huzur is saying that otherwise, because to accept them, you would have to reject a lot of the things in the Holy Quran, and if you want to take it to the time of Minfatah, Huzur is saying that there was such a long time would have passed that when the Quran says that he returned before he was 40, you cannot go to Minfatah unless you prove that to be untrue. So Huzur is saying that you must find your path via the Holy Quran, otherwise I cannot accept it to accept this to go to Minfatah. Huzur is saying, now I wish to seek leave of you. Huzur is saying that from day after tomorrow, inshallah, we will continue this. We shall continue. Huzur is saying that I said it would finish until by Thursday. I didn't realize that whether today was Thursday. Huzur is saying, I thought today was Wednesday, and I would finish this by Thursday, and Allah has showered His blessings on me on this. Huzur is saying that when one makes when one makes a commentary and one is engrossed in deep research, then one forgets whatever is in the present, because it becomes detached from the present. Huzur is saying, do you remember that verse which I was mentioning, the one that starts with Inna fi khalqi samawati wal ard? Huzur is saying that I have recited that thousands of times, and I know that this is the beginning of that verse, but because I was talking about, I was in such a intoxicated state of that particular subject, and when I was told about that verse, I said, no, this is not that verse. Huzur is saying that I wish to explain to you that when a man goes deep into a subject, then for a while the environment, to return to the environment takes him a few moments, just as when you go from a dark room, from a lit up room to a dark room, your eyes have to make an adjustment. Huzur is saying that this happened to you and also happened to me. But Huzur is saying that there is a reason for what I said. So Huzur is saying that the rest of the commentary of the Holy Quran we shall begin from day after tomorrow, inshallah, where we had left this subject, the verses. From there we shall begin again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام